Hello there, Algebra 2B. Welcome to lesson 7.1. What is the relationship between nth roots and rational exponents? Okay, so some prereq knowledge. Back to simplifying square roots. We are going to be looking at nth roots this time around. So the nth root of a is going to look like this. N root of a. We're going to deal with things that aren't just square roots, but some higher level things. You're going to hear me talk about the index of a radical, and that index is this number here, that n. So the index of a radical. What we're getting into are rational exponents, which are essentially fractional exponents as well. Rational, think that means it's a fraction. Okay, and basically, if you have a fractional exponent, it is the same thing as a radical, okay? They're pretty much the same. Isn't that kind of neat? Furthermore, a to the m over n is the same exact thing as n and then a to the m. So the numerator goes inside and the denominator is always your index. And it's also the same thing as n radical a and then the m outside. Okay, they're really the same thing. I wouldn't take points off if you have it either way. Key thing, index is always the denominator. Okay, so what do I mean by this? Okay, your first task is going to simply be rewriting fractional exponents as roots and back and forth. So if I were to give you something like the cubic root of a to the fifth, okay, going backwards, you could rewrite that as a to the 5/3. Okay, so that's kind of going backwards. The index becomes the denominator, the 5 becomes the numerator, and we go from there. Okay, that's all you would have to do. Another example here, if I were to give you something like 5, okay, square roots of 32, or 5 roots of 32 to the second, you could rewrite that as 32 to the 2/5. Okay, so that is essentially how to rewrite radicals. A few more examples here because it can get a little tricky. Something like just the square root of 5 to the third. When you have this, there's always, if there's nothing given to you, there's an imaginary 2 there. Okay, an imaginary 2. So this would be 5 to the 3/2. And you're probably wondering why this really can be done or why we would bother doing this. And when we get into solving, you'll see it can be beneficial. Okay, going the opposite direction, if I were to give you something like 5 to the 3/5, okay, you could go backwards. So the 5th root of 5 to the third. Or if you have it written out, the 5th root of 5 and the 3 outside, both is perfectly fine. You can start to simplify these as well. So if I gave you something bigger, say the root of, or sorry, not the root. Say I gave you 36 to the 3/2. Okay, you could rewrite that as the square root of 36 to the third. And this is where it can get a little helpful because you should hopefully know the square root of 36, and that would just be 6 to the third. And you may not know 6 to the third. So you could try that in your calculator if it cooperates here. 6 to the third, sorry. And that's going to give you 216. Okay. For today, and for the most part, I would like you to write as a number to an exponent. I'll specify if you should round, like in the next few problems. Okay, so going back and forth can be helpful. One of the trickiest things is recognizing that negative exponents do not make negative roots, okay? So something like 36 to the negative 2/5, okay? You need to remember that that is 1 over 36 to the 2/5. From there, you can rewrite as a radical. Okay, so 1 over the 5th root of 36 squared. So that is probably the trickiest thing. Negative exponents do not mean negative numbers. They mean the denominator. So soak that in. Definitely have that written down, and we'll do some more examples here. Okay. Typing these into your calculator. So you will be asked to solve these a little bit later. And you can approximate using your calculator. And there's a few tricks for this. So when I ask you to, or when you're expected to take something like the 5th root of 47, okay, there's a few different ways to go about this. You could type into your calculator knowing that this is really 47 to the 1/5. That's a little easier to type in. So if I type in 47, caret, parentheses 1/5, I would always put that in parentheses. You are going to get 2.16. So round to 2 decimals if you can. Okay, so I would rewrite it as a fraction and then use your calculator from there. Another way to do this, okay, let's say we have, 29, and we want to take the cubic root of it. There's also a way in your calculator to take non-square roots. If we go and we type 3 into your calculator, so 3, and we go to math, and there is a cubic root one, but we go to 5, so 3, and then the math button, and then the x root, that is going to make your square root, or your cubic root. Then we could type in 29. Okay, so that will give you 3.07. Again, you could also have typed in 29 to the 1/3, and you should get the same thing. So it's kind of just the same way, just showing you how those two things are related, but whichever way you're more comfortable with. I think it's honestly easier to rewrite as a fraction. So especially when you have more than one thing going on, let's take 32, and let's say we want to take it cubed, but then squared. Okay, I would recommend rewriting that as 32 to the 2/3 and use that into your calculator. You could do it the other way, but just recognize that it's to a fraction and type it in that way. 32 to the 2/3, about 10.08. 10.08. You could also do negatives this way. So if you had to evaluate something like 1 over the 5th root of let's say 27, you should recognize, okay, it's in the denominator, so that means a negative exponent. So this is really 1 over 27 to the 1/5. And if it's in the denominator, you can think of it as 27 to the negative 1/5. And really, you could have typed this into your calculator to begin with, but if you evaluate that, 27 to the negative 1/5, and I don't have parentheses this time, it should still be okay. You get 0.52, okay, 0.52. Just to reiterate, you could use your calculator and find the fifth root, so 5 math 5 27, leave the parentheses, and that's it there. But I think it's just a little easier, rewrite it as a fraction, okay? So the first part of this is simply just rewriting things as a fraction, okay? These notes are broken up into several parts, so I would encourage you to try these practice problems first before going on to solving from there. So try out the assigned practice problems and good stuff on those notes. Keep these handy because we will finish them up later.